Good evening. I'd like to call this regular meeting for the Columbia Board of Selectmen to order. Tuesday, July 11th, 2023. And first I'll go through this. Rules of conduct for this hybrid virtual meeting. This meeting is held both in person and virtual. The session is being both video and audio recorded. Board members, doesn't matter. Because we're all here. If a member of the public is joined via the Zoom, raise your hand if you'd like to be heard. If the topic is one you want to weigh in on, or in the audience, a citizen. If you are here, we ask that you raise your hand should the topic come up. We'll see if we can call on you. Technically, we're supposed to hear comments. You're an audience, a citizen, and then you have to listen to the information that's going back of the agenda here, old business and new business. We usually don't take questions in that, but I would allow the Board of Selectmen to ask some questions of the people that are here. I understand you might be here for some 7.1. So we'll take a look at that. But there's respect both ways. Be respectful. We will try and be respectful. If not, we'll ask people to come back another time. Okay. So saying that, that's the word part of it. I ask that you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I move to approve the July 11, 2023 agenda as presented. Board, any comments, anything you need? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Approval of minutes. I move to approve the Board of Selectmen regular meeting minutes for June 20th, 2023. Let me ask you to, you can whatever be anywhere on this.
No, I have not heard back.
We're just asking about, the request about the local traffic authority for a turn signal on Route 66 and 6, and we have left lane turn.
No, DOT is not responding.
Okay. Any changes? All those in favor of the minutes? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Audience of citizens, anybody have anything that's not on the agenda tonight? Yes, sir. State your name and address, please.
Barbara Botham, 15 Yeoman's Road, here for me, obviously. I'm just here to say thank you to the Board of Selectmen for letting us CRTC sell flags at the dump. And that was it. I just wanted to say we really appreciate it. It's a great community gathering event. It was just, of course, American flags. And thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. That was it.
Thank you. Anybody on there? No? Good. Okay, old business. HVAC building committee, engineer consultant recommendation. So, Chris, I'm gonna ask you to talk on this. You're on the committee. You have come to a decision on who to hire. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, would you like me to walk you through the slides briefly that's in the packet, or?
Yeah, sure. We can
I
do
get
it very
highlights. All right, so what I'd like to highlight, and I think everyone here knows the members, but I think it's worth mentioning the members that have devoted the last 7 months now of hard work, meeting sometimes weekly, other times every couple weeks. The purpose is again to, on behalf of the HVAC committee, to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen as a down select firm to do the design work. So I would like to provide that. That's the purpose. I'd like to go over the timeline. Just again, most of us already know what transpired in some future milestones in the proposed project schedule from a couple of the firms, their proposed fee, and in the end, the recommendations. So the members, as voted by the Board of Selectmen, and myself, on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, Christine Sposito, she's on behalf of the Board of Education. Then we have members from the community that have technical expertise in either HVAC and or construction, contracting, David Geiser, Guy Wangard, Jeff Collins, Alan Harbeck. Great. The team's been great. They're very knowledgeable, been very helpful in this recommendation. And of course, Mike Sylvester, he's the facilities manager. He's a non-voting member. Barbara Wilson, superintendent, acting superintendent. Of course, Mark's been part of the meetings and has been a strong supporter as well. And again, the purpose of this recommendation is to recommend. Last night, we did present before the Board of Education and similar presentation, and they did vote in favor of our recommendation. So at the end of this, hopefully the Board of Selectmen will consider what our recommendations are. And really, this is to enter into a contract for the firm to do the complete design of the indoor air quality system in Board School, which would include any related renovations and other improvements related to that.
So can I get a clarification? When you
Yep.
say do the air quality into the school, we talking the whole school or just wing A?
So the firm is going to do the complete design for the entire school. That was the scope of our RFP that went out with
Okay.
the understanding that they would design the entire school, but the Board of Selectmen and town may choose to just do section A in various, in different stages, but the intent was the firm would do the entire, or look at the entire, make the recommendations on how to do it. Phase, because you're not gonna do the entire school over one summer anyway. So the brief review of the timeline, as we all know, last November, we had a town meeting, and the town meeting approved the HVAC state grant submission, as well as the formation of the HVAC committee. Beginning of December, the Board of Ed submitted the grant application. Late December, the Board of Selectmen appointed the members. So the HVAC committee, we started meeting on January 9th. And like I said, we've been meeting almost weekly and sometimes every other week if need be. Unfortunately, we did not get the first round on April 5th. The governor and his team announced the first round of grants, and Columbia wasn't on it, I guess for various reasons. They're looking for shovel ready or projects that have already been completed. We're hopeful that the second round of grants, which again, according to the Department of Administrative Services, which administers the school construction grants, it's come back in the summer. So we're assuming that it might be open as early as August, and then it'll have a window closed for the grant submission 1st of December, similar to what we experienced last year. So the first step we did as a committee, right after we got the charge and we started to put together the request for qualifications. That was the initial stage where we put together a documentation that went out for bid to seek prospective firms to see if they were even qualified, right? So we had 4 that returned input for the qualifications. We actually had both in-person and remote interviews with all 4, and that was during the month of April. And in May, we invited 3 of the 4 firms to actually do the next step, which was the request for proposal. So those proposals were due on June 1st. They all submitted timely proposals. We did send out, a series of questions out to each of the three prospective firms, just to clarify some of their statements, make sure that we understood what they bid, make sure that they, and I'm glad we did, because there's some things that we found out they didn't bid. For example, none of them bid acoustical engineering services, whereas Alan Harbeck, for example, is of the opinion that that's probably something that would be required. But again, that would be a topic of discussion for the firm that we end up going with, if this is the path we agreed to tonight. And again, we have pricing for that. All three bidders had to provide supplemental pricing for that service. And yeah, so like I said, we expect the opening date for the round 2 grants in August, maybe a little later, and closing in December. So the next slide goes to the project schedule, and this only shows the first phases. The first phase is like the initial site investigation, initial recommendations. The second phase is going through design development, design approval documents, construction documents, and then the third phase and fourth phase, which is not included in this timeline because they're post-grant submission, would be going out to bid, which the firms would be part of that, as well as the construction, which is, I think, the lion's share of the work, depending on the path we go. So the firms which we're comparing here is Silver Petroselli and Associates, and Salomon and Associates, and those were 2 of the 3 firms that were of the lowest price range, that were technically acceptable proposals. So if you look at side-by-side comparison, Silver Petroselli, their total timeline for phases 1 through 2 is estimated to be 14 weeks versus Salomon and Associates, which was 24 weeks. So an additional 10 weeks for them to do that. So part of our clarifying questions when we went out was like, well, if we needed cost estimates by the beginning of October, and that was a date which we estimated with the assumption that we would need something beginning of October. So that way, if the Board of Selectmen, in going through the grant phase, needed to determine, okay, we need another town meeting, right? If the values change, right, we would have to go to another town meeting and then potentially another referendum, depending on the value, right? So the idea was to get an estimate beginning of October, which would give us the month of October into November to go through the town meeting and referendum process in time for the Board of Education to submit the second grant application, before the end of November. So the next slide does a comparison of the proposed project fee. So you can see the phase 1 of the site investigation, Silver Petroselli came in a little bit under. Salomon was higher by about another $6,500 roughly. The design preparation phase, they were somewhat close as well, but they're off by about 44,000 each. The bidding assistance, they're a couple $100 apart. The real difference in pricing, as you can see, is phase 4 with the construction assistance. Silver Petroselli came in at 141,000, and Salomon and Associates came as low as 51,400. So rough.
What is that?
We thought.
What is construction assistance?
That's essentially once we get in the construction phase and a contractor is subcontracted to do the work, they're available for meetings to review drawings, to answer any questions. I mean, they're basically part of our intermediary.
Okay, that's, I just needed to know, clarify what that means.
So I'm gonna ask about that also. The company that, as the design and the bidding goes out and stuff, the company that we're looking at, shouldn't they be able to handle all that based on all the specs, the schematics, why do we have to pay an extra $100,000 to have Silver Petroselli sitting there answering the phone going, yeah, run the wires through the roof, that's what I would do, thank you. I mean, I'm being very cavalier about it, but honestly, This is millions of dollars that we're thinking this is probably gonna cost.
Mhm.
Shouldn't the construction firm that wins this bid, shouldn't they know what they're doing? I mean, to the tune of $100,000 answering questions? That's my concern. I mean,
I mean, we certainly have technical expertise on the HVAC committee who can certainly probably address some of the questions, but again. The design firm is going to be the ones that develop the specifications that are gonna be bid to, right? So they're gonna be the ones who are gonna have the expertise for any in-depth questions. I understand if it's a simple question about, hey, do we route this cabling here or, you know, we have a vent that's, you know, can't be routed in a straight line, we have to, reroute it. I mean, you would think that they wouldn't need to involve the design firm. Again, this is just what we have requested in our
Do you
proposal.
know the difference between the Salamone and Silver Petroselli, what they, you know, the difference between why there's such a big difference in cost? Do you have a sense for that?
I mean, the sense that we got was, Salamone had provided a lot less periodic meetings, right, a few meetings. And it's not reflected here, and again, it's the sense that the committee got through the interview process, through combing through their proposals. Salamone is a much smaller firm compared to Silver Petroselli. Not that they're not equivalent in capabilities and whatnot. But I think based upon the discussions, based upon the proposals, and even the pricing alone suggests that, you know, Salamone kind of sees, well, once you get in construction phase, maybe like Steve's point, they're not really needed. They're not expected to really be involved to the extent that someone like Silver Petroselli would be involved. I mean, when we compared it to the third bidder, which was much higher, they paid like $690,000. And again, when we looked at it, they didn't really give us a breakdown by phase. They seemed to look at it, we think, through a percentage of the total project value. They weren't really forthright with how they broke it down. I mean, understanding that's great questions. We got the sense from the committee that Silver Petroselli has a lot deeper bench. They've got a lot more capability in-house, would be able to turn this around. And again, in the end, it came down to who can provide the documents we need in order to meet state grant submittal, right? If we weren't meeting what we perceived to be a submittal by the beginning of December and didn't think we needed to go to a town meeting, then we might reconsider Salamone, right? But they wouldn't get us an estimate until the beginning of January. And I would not recommend to the board that we go in again with a BDH estimate that we got back in 2021. I don't think that would be a good success path to try to win the second round of grants.
So it's time.
From a proposal schedule perspective, yeah.
Chris, today, I want to circle back to phase 4 construction assistance line. Did anybody in the committee take issue at all with that?
I'm sorry, Dave, what?
Yes, take issue with it. They have a problem at all with the proposal as far as that category of construction assistant. And it was raised earlier, but I just wanted to see clarification.
Not, I mean, that was, and actually it was to the opposite. I mean, for example, David Geiser, he was like, you know, he got the sense based on their pricing. Again, he didn't give us the details of how many hours per week or per whatever, but he got the sense that Silver Petroselli is there for probably the most critical phase, right? When we need to make sure that we get it right. We have a small window during the summer to get the electrical upgrade done and possibly one of the sections done in the one summer, because we're constrained with the time frame. We have to do it in the summertime. We've got to allow enough time for them to be able to clean and reopen the school in the fall. So the thought was Silver Petroselli would be there to answer any questions and I guess maybe help to mitigate any delay in the construction if there's any issues.
Yeah, well, as you started, I'll say you have a lot of strong people on the committee. So I mean, if they're comfortable with it, I'm happy to defer to their wisdom on it.
Is that for just this phase one? I assume this is the 141 would only be for, A-wing? Wouldn't.
No, these values assume the whole entire project.
Okay, so what if we only end up doing A-wing?
Then that would certainly be a change in scope, we have to approach whoever and say, hey, you know.
Because this is
we have-
assuming we're gonna.
Correct,
proceed with
correct,
the whole
and
thing.
that was one of the questions that we asked of all of them, did you assume, you know, one selected contractor to do the work? You know, a project maybe phased over 2 summers, right, to get the entire project, and they all came back and said yes, and said it would be a change in cost. And they'd have to reevaluate the proposal because it would extend the time frame on. I mean, we couldn't hold them on to hook with this pricing if we decided to do A-wing, next year, waited another year or 2, or and did another section. They were not, none of them were the pricing, and we would have an opportunity, I would say, to go back to any of them and say, okay, well, we're having a change in scope. It's actually a downward scope, and we should get a downward adjustment in our contract based upon the adjusted scope.
Because I would think if we're gonna ever do the whole building, that would be, you know, doing just A would depend on what we're doing with the other part of the building. I would think, I mean, there'd be some correlation there, so it seems smarter to look at the whole building.
And
Even if we just
does this include air conditioning the entire building, or is it just taking care of the moisture issues in A-wing?
You're talking about their proposals?
Yes.
So for the design proposals, they all propose designing the entire school. Looking at the existing equipment, looking at A-wing, looking at all the other areas, and coming up with a recommendation of how to improve the air quality in the school, which may include AC, which may include maybe other features. Again, I can't speak to what other alternatives they may look at. I mean, I will say, because I think I know where you're going with the next question, Lisa. Silver Petroselli did not include in their original proposal to us review of the building and exterior grounds for any water migration or any type of drainage issues. We did get clarification from all of them. Silver Petroselli said, no, we didn't include that. The committee discussed that a couple meetings ago and felt that we could probably ask Silver Petroselli if they could provide a recommendation on that issue in not to exceed 50 hours, and they said yes. And that's where that price, they have a price upper of $13,750 to basically do that review and make any recommendations. Actually, they don't have that expertise in-house. They have a subcontract where they would consult to do that. So yeah, so I'm getting to the last slide, but I think you're kind of the punchline. I mean, we're recommending Silver Petroselli because they are the next lowest bidder that's technically acceptable that can meet the project timeline. If we weren't behind the 8 ball like we are today, and it's not through lack of effort, this committee's been meeting, like I said, almost weekly if necessary to get to where we are. I mean, we went through a month and a half of having to review qualifications, which I think we did thoroughly, and then to get bids and to review them. So the board was pretty comfortable with recommending them a couple weeks ago on the condition that we got favorable responses to some additional questions. Mark had reached out to Silver Petroselli about a week and a half ago, asked to follow up on the exterior ground, but they were charged for that. Also, if they would commit to the 10-1 submission, which they did for an estimate, and they felt that they would be pretty far along on the construction documents, and then have essentially them all submitted for approval by the end of the year. And again, the HVAC committee is of the opinion that the more further along we are and prepared, when we submit the application, we may not be shovel ready, but we will have initial design concept. We'll have a firm under contract, we'll have an updated estimate based upon 2023 values that are estimated, and we can demonstrate that we have a project scheduled. Because those are all questions that I recall from the application that were blank when we submitted our application back in December.
So you're thinking not up to August, so the opening for date for the second round of grants is August, and then the closing is December. So
Right, and I'm getting that because when Governor Lamont first announced the bid.
Yeah.
There was in that initial press, there was, if you think it was either a link to the State Department of Administrative Services, which basically said that would be the projected window. You go there now and it's gone. So why they pulled it down, I'm not really sure. That could have changed, but from what I'm hearing, I think what Mark and I think even Mike Sylvester's hearing through the grapevine, it's probably gonna close in December because they're going to need to have these other contract. And again, we're hoping that although the first round of grants need to be completed, projects need to be completed by the end of December of 2024, we're hoping that the second round will extend out a year and we'll have that till the end of 2025. But
Right.
a lot of this is ARPA funding, which has to be either encumbered or committed in 2024.
So what happens if we don't get the grant? What happens to this $428,000, $144,000 of it of construction that may or may not happen?
I mean, I would say that that's a change in scope for any of the
Okay, but
contractors.
It needs to be in the contract.
That's,
Right, oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, I would say
that's
that.
the third time I heard you say change of scope. I just want to make sure that it's written.
Yeah, I would say with any of the contractors, if hypothetically, if we were to go to town meeting in the fall and we go to a referendum, and a similar referendum is if we don't get the grant, then we don't proceed.
So we
But,
won't see
okay, so,
in a different, like, electrical upgrade, anyway, yourself.
okay, so my problem with everything I'm hearing, and this is my problem with everything I'm hearing, and I'm so frustrated I could cry. Because we just had 7 inches of rain in July. And I want to know if anybody has been over there to see if rain has infiltrated the school, watch during a storm, see what water is doing. If anybody's taken advantage of any of that, because you can put in the best air conditioning system in the world, but if that water that I believe is a major problem over there, because it's not going anywhere, it's going into wells and right near the building and it's seeping in, this would be my guess. That I don't understand why that wasn't looked at right off the end. I don't understand this. This to me is the most frustrating. All I'm hearing is that we're going for the grant. Let's get rid of the problem. I don't care about the grant. I want a good, clean school. If you are allergic to mold, like I am, you would appreciate how difficult it is to even walk through that hall. And no air conditioning system is gonna get rid of the mold. It doesn't get rid of it. It just keeps coming back. You have to get rid of the source.
So we've had multiple walkthroughs. I mean, I cannot say that we walked through last week, but I mean, we did meet June 26th, which there was some rain between then. We did meet last night. I mean, there was obviously had been rain in the past. We hadn't walked it again. I mean, Mike Sylvester is part of the team. I mean,
But isn't there like a drain guy? Isn't there a water landscaping? I think there's one in Bolton, as a matter of fact, that has just trucks left on my way home. And I just don't understand why that wasn't just looked at, even by somebody in town, or, well, we didn't hire, somebody for $5,000-$10,000 to come out and look at that. Just look at that, see what's going on. I don't get it. And I don't know who's supposed to do that. And that's supposed to be.
that was not the understanding of the charge of the HVAC committee. I mean, it was part of the RFP.
My issue with
included
this is that it's an afterthought.
by that one firm, right? Salamone and Associates did include it. They have civil engineers that
Okay,
are gonna look
so-
at it. The same with the other firm, who was not selected. So it was an omission by Silver Petroselli when they walked through. And that was one thing that Mike Sylvester was a little, I don't know, surprised we talked about it, right? But, and again, I didn't mention it before, I apologize, but we do have experience with Silver Petroselli, right? They were contracted in the past to do the roof at the school, back 9-10 years ago. They also were contracted for a smaller project at the school to do the stairs going up in the cafeteria behind, where the bleachers were converted that. I mean, Mark did reference checks on a couple of them, which came back favorable. So I hear what you're saying, Lisa. I mean, if we were to go with whoever, right, it is part of the initial phase 1 site investigation. Unfortunately, Silver Petroselli didn't include it in their original bid at $404,000. It would be an upper by another $14,000. But it would be something of consideration. So it's something that's looked at, but
So, but so right now, this is a summer issue, right? The mold issue is a summer issue. We've been going through this since, October or November of last year, and no one has bothered to look at the mold issue going into the summer, to stop the mold from growing through the summer. And are we gonna be cleaning the school again in September, October, because we have a mold problem? It's kind of odd. Just saying, it's not.
I know,
it's not all on you.
I hear you. Maybe I was remiss in the charge of what we did, but we were tasked to look at air conditioning design, to do that, to look at vendors, to include looking at water migration and making sure that if we were to put in HVAC, but again, I think the premise that the Board of Selectmen maybe needs to consider, to your point, is the direction to just fix the problem, not do anything with air conditioning. If we get dehumidifiers in there, we get a guy with a backhoe and pulls back the groundage and basically regrades that, and guess what? You reroute the downspouts and it's away from the school, and we don't need to put air conditioning, and that's all we need to do. That was not the entirety of the scope that the board or the HVAC committee looked at. If that's all you want to do, well, then maybe we need to go back to the drawing board as a committee and say, okay, we looked at the large piece of the project, maybe we need to go back and look. But I can tell you, Lisa, I mean, everyone, we are well aware of the concern. It's brought up. I talk about it all the time. Everyone rolls their eyes. They know it is a concern of you and others on the Board of Selectmen. It is an item that's going to get looked at. Now, if you're concerned because we would be spending almost $500,000 on a contractor to do a large piece, when you only want to look at one little piece, well, then maybe we need to.
I mean, I'm never under the impression, my personal self, that air conditioning for the school was the priority, considering we need air conditioning, cooling for a school, maybe 10 days a year. Just saying, we
But
have,
that's what we asked them to do. See, I guess I see the air conditioning is also contributes to air quality, and yes, we do have to evaluate the,
air quality,
Wait, let me
indoor
finish.
air quality
Let
is
me finish.
typically, okay, you're right.
because we're gonna evaluate, where the water's coming from, that's, part of this. And, I mean, AC, does also take the humidity out of the air, out of the whole building. So evaluate this. I don't think, even if we found out what was going on with the water and the mold, I think we still would have to evaluate the AC, this kind of, and that's what we
So
asked
I'm
them to
going-
do. We asked them to do,
I never asked them to do that. I asked them to find out where the water's.
but that's what the
That's-
charge we, as the Board of Selectmen, we gave.
So air conditioning, dehumidifying does not get rid of the source. And it does not prevent the air conditioning system from getting moldy again and
That's-
requiring annual cleaning.
Right, that's why they're looking at.
But the fact of the matter is, these kids are coming back in September to a possibly moldy school for another year.
That's another thing, this isn't gonna get done quickly, but,
And-
so I think that's got, they have to evaluate that.
But can I just talk to just alleviate any concerns about what was said? So yes, there's been mold found, right? I mean, the school does have periodically an industrial hygienist that comes up, Mystic Air, right? The reports on the
Yeah.
town website, right? They came, I think, recently, a couple years ago. So they come out and they evaluate, take air samples, right? They take a sample from, and that's the thing, there's no standard of exposure or percentage of mold. What they do is they take samples on the exterior of the building, and then they take samples in the interior of the building, and they compare to see are they comparable, right? If the mold spores and other bio, whatever words are, I'm gonna butcher the term, is higher than the exterior, well, okay, you guys have a problem. There are higher levels bleeding. I know what you're talking about, Lisa. I've got asthma. I walk in a room, I can tell you in a mildewy basement if there's gonna be problems, but unfortunately, there's no standard that says, well, that's acceptable and that's not.
I disagree, because Rich, my husband, used to be the building manager for the building we worked in. And there was the Department of, DES, Developmental Services.
Yeah.
And they had mold in there, and there was a remediation company that came in and looked at everything. They could tell where the molds came from, and they suggested stuff. But the fact of the matter, he was told by those people, if the mold is already in the building, you're not getting rid of it you have to get rid of the source. So they recommended places where there was downspouts that were leaking, and they had to look at the whole thing. So I disagree with you on that. They know when there is a mold issue because of moisture that's infiltrating.
Right, and my only point was, unlike OSHA requirements, which doesn't necessarily mandate that in school, where there's acceptable limits in exterior, that's what I'm saying, there's no limit that triggers, oh my goodness, you got a problem, right? They look for a variety of types of stuff, they look for black mold, some of the more dangerous mold, right? That's stuff that isn't found. So that was the only point I was trying to make, is unfortunately, there's not a standard that they go to saying, if you're at this level of mold, then you need to shut down, or you have all these problems and all that. My point was, they compare exterior samples to interior samples, and that's how they kind of gauge, yeah, you got problems, but compared to the exterior, you know, you need to remediate. So I'm not really sure what else I can say. I mean, the HVAC committee is proposing, I guess, an entire look at the school for the design. If that's not the path that you want us to continue to look at it and pursue, I mean, we can go back and downsize the scale of what he wants to look at.
So listening to all of this, I'm gonna tell you what I recall and what I recall we've asked for. Okay. When it came time for the air purification, I said, what system we looking at? We looked at an AC, heating, and an air purification system. I asked about the water and the mold, and at the time, September, because we had to clean through the summer because they found mold in the lower A wing. And then 3 months ago, I said to Mike Sylvester, is there mold in the school now? He said, yes, there is mold in the school now. So the question was, do we know where the water's coming, the moisture's coming from? Because in my basement, and we talked about that, so the bottom line is, but I do think that we're going to be mandated by the state for air purification systems. It's already been proposed. I think there was a vote
I don't think
in the legislature. Or it didn't get to the vote this time, but it's coming around, okay? It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money where there's two things. The only place we've found mold in the school has been A wing, because it's below the grade, like basements. It absorbs the moisture. That's where the stuff grows. And I didn't know we were gonna air condition the whole school or look at it. Because you're right, 10 days a year. But again, while they're there, while they're looking at this, the question is, do we want to report on what it would cost? Do we want to report on what they suggest? Do we want to report on going out there and doing this, whether it's A wing or the entire school, because they're in there? I think if we say to them, just do A wing, you're probably gonna cut this by $100,000. Not a lot of money.
They won't do a half.
No, they're not gonna do that. They're not gonna cut it by a fifth, which is a fifth the size of the school is a fifth. So the question is, do we get the answers that we're looking for, or do we get the answers of concerns that we need so we can move forward in the next round? I do have a problem with construction assist. I understand what you're saying, Bill, I really do, but it just, it's hard for me to say, okay, all the specs, the schematics, everything.
It's hard for me to sit back and second guess a committee that you have a lot of people with expertise on. And they made certain recommendations here. I don't think that they've ignored the issue as far as the drainage is concerned. And I think that's clear that they give a consideration to that. And that was raised in the very beginning, and I don't think anybody in the committee has ignored it. So, no, I think that as a board, we shouldn't be second guessing the committee.
I'm just saying, we should have just addressed it separately. It should have been addressed this spring. We could have addressed that separately out of pocket. I don't think that's gonna be a big expense. I wouldn't think it would be.
So I had a question when we talked today, Mark, the 428,000, should we decide to go with this bid or either one of these firms, is this money? Can we capture that or that amount in our submittal of the grant so we get a portion of it back?
So they haven't submitted the grant application yet.
I understand that.
Based on the previous application, we would include that expense in our request for grant reimbursement.
And how much is the grant?
Well, last time it was
Last
51%.
No,
How much was it?
I'll think up to
54, I think.
It was more than 50,
Over 50.
over 50.
So if they cut it by, 100, because we only want a wing, and this, I'm inclined to, move forward. We have already authorized $500,000 to do this. And, I guess I'd like some answers too. And the water migration is one of those. But I'd like to be ready to go.
I do know from the
Should these
committee,
grants open up again, because I don't, if someday somebody's gonna turn off the spigot to the treasury and. I'm not sure
Stop
when,
printing?
yeah. They,
based on the expertise in the room from the men who have owned HVAC companies, our system, but in that committee, our system of the school was designed back in the 50s. When we built it, we didn't upgrade to the newest and greatest.
To A.
Yeah, the whole,
No, the rest of the school was all done in the 90s.
the air handling does not have any modern capabilities.
negative pressure.
It's a negative pressure system where they just turn it on and it sucks air from the outside in and exits the roof. So it's an antiquated old system that the school uses. So that's part of this whole evaluation.
Okay, so a couple things on, it. They call it an antiquated system.
Well,
Yeah.
that's based on today's standard.
I understand. Today's standards, we instead of bringing in air, very clean air from Columbia. Columbia is pretty good air. And instead of sucking in clean air from outside, which generally speaking is a whole lot cleaner in Columbia than indoor air. Indoor air quality is full of toxins. And outdoor around here is way better. We're not in the city. We don't have car exhaust. We don't have factories. So I was very sick. I moved to Columbia because of the air. Okay, I moved out of Windsor Locks, the town where I grew up, because of an airport and Dexter's and 91, and I was sick and I had asthma and my kids had asthma. And the first spring out here, I never had it again. So I moved out here because of that air out there that everybody, so sucking it in. So now we're gonna have forced air so that it all is gonna need filters. And you're gonna have to have filters that you're replacing and maintaining, and it's all gonna cost more to run. So I want everybody to kind of think of those things. When I want fresh air, I open windows. I don't shut them and turn on AC. Just saying.
Yeah, I think I made a comment like that at the very first meeting saying, telling me we need to cancel outdoor.
And we all, you know, we're all, you know, it's all this, you know, we gotta lower our energy uses and we can't have all these things going to landfills, and yet we're gonna make a whole lot of filters and a whole lot more energy to run a system when we have beautiful fresh air outside with lots of oxygen.
Okay, well, I have a motion here. I'll read it. We'll take a vote. I move to accept the Horace Porter School HVAC Building Committee's recommendation to the Board of Selectmen to enter into a contract with Silver Petrocelli and Associates to provide a complete design work for the indoor air quality system at the Horace W. Porter School and related renovations and improvements. Any more? All those in favor?
Aye.
I will abstain.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention, 1. 4-1, 4-0-1. When do you meet with the Petrocelli group again? Can you, let me put it differently. Can you let me know when you meet with the Petrocelli group again? I think I may have a question.
Right, so I believe the next step, assuming that we're going to get under contract first, because I know early on they would have a kickoff meeting, they want to include town officials, I think, talk to the building inspector, you and others. I think that would probably be one of the first times we meet, unless you think before then, Mark, we would set something
Unless
up in
it-
here.
It might be an early conversation with Stephen and I
Yeah,
and yourself on the contract,
okay.
and then the engagement would be the next step. So we'll talk.
6.2, change to the burning ordinance, open burning ordinance. Can you talk way about this?
When you get out of, hold on. Back to the meeting. Okay. So we asked our planner to look at our open burn ordinance due to some complaints of smoke. During what would normally be a non-wood burning season. And these are some of the modifications that were recommended based on what other towns have done to control seasonal burning between June 1st and September 30th. It's not directly related to generating heating in a home or hot water that would create a nuisance to the neighborhood. So this is a recommendation. I also ran it by our town attorney. You can see the attached letter that they agreed that these are reasonable modifications to a wood burning ordinance, but they also recommended and advised that you would have to have it approved by DEEP. So I put it before the board of selectmen for your thoughts. Maybe take time to digest it. And we could always vote to send it to DEEP at the next board of selectmen meeting. It would also most likely require a town meeting to ratify a revised revision that wasn't.
Where brought this issue up?
There's a couple on that came to our board of selectmen meeting and stated that due to their asthma and their new baby and the fact that their neighbor burns nonstop next door year round, that's smoking out their house.
Very cool.
Is that was an outdoor furnace,
It's an indoor,
indoor furnace?
it's indoor in a garage.
It's an in garage with an outdoor exhaust like it should, which does not have a high enough stovepipe to get it above
The neighbor's house.
Is that a heat burning? I mean, is that for hot water?
We've asked the resident to pull a permit and have it inspected by a town official to find out
It must be.
why he's burning it with stove in the heat of the summer. And to see if it's been serviced. It was put in the 80s, so we don't know if it's the original stove or what.
It must be for hot water.
Oh, I assume.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But if it were for hot water, that is okay.
Yes.
That's allowed year round, if I'm reading it correctly.
For fireplaces not directly related to generation of home heating, including hot water, and in a way that creates a nuisance. So if it's doing hot water, it's okay.
But then we'd have to see.
My only problem with this is in a way that creates a nuisance. That's one of those subjective things that might get us into trouble in the end.
Well, the other investigation needs to be, why is there so much smoke and why is it so? Why is the smell so bad that the neighborhood is getting choked out? So what is being burned is probably another topic to review.
Well, the question is that in here?
No,
Is what in there?
What they can burn? I mean, if you're burning wet wood and leaves and everything, I mean,
or garbage.
or garbage. I mean, if he says, if the neighbor says, I'm burning it for heat, excuse me, I'm burning it for hot water. I'm burning wood. What kind of wood are you burning? I'm burning wet wood, or I'm burning, you know,
It's very subjective in a way that creates a nuisance. It's just so undefined.
Well, nuisance is defined by law, interference with use and enjoyment of your property, it's not a difficult term to be interpreted. I mean, you're not gonna
Yeah, but what's one person's nuisance isn't from another.
question of fact for a judge or jury.
I've heard from other neighbors that it is a problem. This isn't normal.
yeah, what is the, don't they have a rule for the furnaces that have a chimney,
That's only
So
out,
high.
that's only the outdoor wood burning furnaces that have to be so many feet from the house and so many feet from your neighbors. And the smoke stack has to be so high.
It's gonna depend
It's-
on how the wind blows.
The problem is,
Fog kind of keeps it down.
Yeah.
On Upper Pine Street used to be a big problem, I don't know if it still is here. I mean,
yeah, lower pine,
Yeah,
also lower,
yeah,
terrible.
Mm.
a lot of times you're burning green wood or trash.
Anybody really want to take a deep dive into this before we vote on this?
Well, I don't think we're ready to vote tonight. I'd say let's
Look at it.
mull it over, and let's talk it another day. I'll take some of your concerns back to the
Yes.
plan.
Is 200 feet of adjacent residential, seasonal burning, so that would be a fire pit,
Right.
I'm assuming.
Well, seasonal burning would be
Anything,
during the wood stove, during normal season, which is winter, fall, winter.
so if you have a wood stove in your house and you're only 100 feet from your neighbors, you can't burn a wood stove?
Open burning permit required.
No, number E. Down here in the second, there's E.
Seasonal burning
Shall be permitted from location.
Within 200 feet of adjacent residence, yeah, so that, yeah, they.
If it's a small lot and you're using a wood stove for heat, you're not gonna be able to burn a wood stove.
People are using more wood stoves than they were should.
Especially.
All right, let me get answers to that.
Why don't you look it over, if you have more questions, please send them.
I just wanted to run it by the whole board and get your thoughts before we. Look at
This
it.
was, the-
Just recently.
well, the policy, the past one was 2010 and then amended 2014. Not 2023.
Okay, so we'll table this.
Yeah.
We'll bring it up here.
Take a look at it. New businesses, conservation and agricultural presentation on farm building tax agreement.
All right, let's stand over here.
Who are you?
I'm John. I'll introduce myself. I'm Jason Rico. I live, address is 102 Lake Road. I, own a field engineer farm and I am a member of the Conservation Ag Committee.
Okay, first name Jason?
Yes,
I'm gonna actually hold on a second.
yeah.
Mark, you wanna kick this off so I know what Jason's?
Okay, Tom and Ian.
Yep.
Tom representing the Conservation Commission, and Conservation Commission had come to me and asked if they could make with this committee a brief presentation as to why a farm building tax exemption would be helpful to support the fact that we are a farm safe community, what's the term, Tom?
Right to farm.
Right to farm too, thank you. And that we do support farming, it is part of our economic development initiative, and farming, for the most part, in New England is a very small enterprise and not huge in margins and revenue, so every little bit, including an exemption on a farm building, which is a requirement for most farms, because you know, they have to protect their equipment and their livestock, so this is something that is available through state statute, and we could, with the approval of a town meeting, exempt buildings of a farm if they, I think, generate at least 10,000 in income a year.
It's, they have to generate or a loss of $15,000 a year, and they also have to be filing Schedule F on their 1040. Those are the key requirements.
So it's control.
Yes, sir.
Now you're up.
Thank you. I'm Jason Rico. I'm a member of the Conservation Ag Committee. I also own a farm on Lake Road, 102 Lake Road, named the farm Field Engineer Farm. And I'm presenting tonight on the farm building tax exemption. Thanks a lot. So what is this? The enabling legislature for this is CGS section 12-91. There's some in your packets, there should be this, and at the very bottom, it starts off with statute, which I kind of want you to, you could skip the first part, and I want to draw your attention to section C. Basically, any municipality has the, upon approval through its legislative board, can adopt this ordinance to exempt farm buildings up to $100,000 per building. And actually, let me clarify that you don't, if you wanted to have the legislature read differently, you could approve it up to 50, the board of selectmen or the legislative body can cap it at whatever value they want, because other towns have done that, where they don't cap it at 100,000. They don't take the full exemption up to 100,000, they cap it at say 50 or 25,000. To help out small farms and sort of exempts the largest farms. But I'm not gonna read you section C. If you want to read that, it's there for you. It's part of section 12-91. Next slide. I'm not suggesting that we should be followers, but I just wanted to point out that there are other towns, and these are the nearby towns. There's a list in your packet as well, of all the towns that are offering the exemption up to $100,000. I think this was given to me by Joan Nichols, who is the director of Connecticut Farm Bureau. And she came and actually presented to farmers in town, I think it was late April, to kind of tell them what the whole farm building tax exemption was all about. And at the time, she provided us a list of the towns that were taking the exemption. And if you see Mansfield, there's a model ordinance in the packet from Mansfield. I think we found a model ordinance from both, if you want, I can provide you with that. So I'm only highlighting that it's the charge of the Conservation Ag Committee to advise the Board of Selectmen with respect to the importance of agriculture in town. That's all. That's right in the charter. And then this is from the Plan of Conservation and Development. These are some of the conservation that was written in 2016, so it's a little bit of a dated document, but it's the newest one we have. So these are some of the things that were important goals listed in the POCD. Protect the wetlands, protect farmland soils, which is we're losing more farmland soils every year because of development than we are protecting them. And And also, you know, we're providing, by keeping farmland, or by keeping land in agriculture, we're offering, you know, wildlife corridors, and we're not fragmenting we're not fragmenting things so much, so their flow. Next slide. And then these were listed as some development goals for agriculture. You know, you want to continue to support the agricultural businesses that are there, and we want to try to encourage new businesses to come in and start farming again, because no offense to some of the farmers who might be in this room, but a lot of people are aging out of farming, and there's not as many new farmers to take those spots. And so, you know, there are practices that towns and municipalities can put in place, like the building exemption, to help promote farming, you know, new farmers to come in and try and take over those existing farmlands and keep them going. Okay, so this is more from the plan of conservation development. These are, you know, agriculture is a lot in town. I think in the POCD, it listed that 3/4 of the townspeople in the survey commented that agriculture and the open space that agriculture provides was an important part of why they like Columbia, why they want to be here. And that's great. I'm happy to hear that as a farmer, and I'm sure other farmers are happy to hear that. But this is, you know, having the building exemption would be something tangible that farmers, you know, I go to bed, I think to myself, it's nice that everyone likes farming, but that's, you know, there's a lot of bills in farming too, and to have an exemption on building is a big deal. And so, you know, there are a lot of benefits to agriculture, and these are some of them, you know, ag preservation. There's an economic benefit, and I know that's going to sound counterintuitive, but when you take land out of agriculture and start developing it, yes, your initial tax revenue gets bumped up, but over the long haul, you have to provide more services to more houses, and in the long run, you're gonna end up, your mill rate could possibly go up. I mean, they've done studies on this throughout the country to show that. More of the economic benefit, you know, farmers are we're bringing other people into town to buy our goods. You know, some farmers take their goods to farmers markets, and so that's sort of, I don't want to get into that too much, but it's Susan Mitchell, Full Farm. She has a pretty large CSA, so people are coming into town to pick up their food here. You know, there's a chance that they'll bump into other businesses that they might want to support here in town as well. So, you know, there's an economic benefit. The rural benefit, if we all if you just took the 3 farmers or 4 farmers who I can see in town right now, if you took their land and developed it, I mean, some of the most beautiful views would just disappear. I can't tell you how many times I drive by Doug Robinson's farm, and somebody's parked and taken a picture of a gorgeous sunset, you know, with his farm in the background. The environmental benefit, I can't think of a single farmer who wants to go destroy land, you know, willy-nilly. So they're trying to protect the land and the water that's on the land, and that has a trickle-down effect, because if, you know, I live in an area that watersheds into Columbia Lake. I work really hard to make sure that I don't put too much phosphate in the soil, so that phosphate doesn't run off into the lake. And I just know that the lake is a big hot button issue with phosphates and keeping plant vegetation down. So, you know, there's that too. The food security benefit, I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. We're losing more farmers than we are gaining them. So, you know, if we keep our food secure here, we have to drive not as far to get it. It's fresher, it's more nutrient dense. You know, there's just the food security one is probably one of the biggest ones. Next slide. So this is the bottom line. So this is the potential impact, and I worked with, Mark gave me the blessing to work with, Mary Hawley on this, and she and I put together a list of the farms that we thought would be able to take, advantage of the benefit. And so, this is the potential change in the grand list, which works out to be, well, I'm sorry. This is the potential exemption, which is 0.23% of the grand list. So the actual potential change, worst case scenario, and I don't even know if everyone on that list is going to be able to take advantage of it, is $34,567. So, you know, we're not talking about a huge change to the grand list by doing this, but we are talking about, you know, showing that we are actually an ag friendly town and kind of putting our money, our, you know, showing that the right to farm town means something, I guess. I think that's the last slide, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
All right, so I had a whole bunch of questions,
Yes, sir.
but they're all answered right here. Okay, you have to apply every year. Our assessor gets to go out and look at it.
Yes.
Our assessor can do spot checks.
Yes.
Okay. The horse, the equine, riding, they qualify for this too?
As the definition is stated in the statute, yes, equine would be eligible to take advantage of this up to, you know.
Okay, and are you your Cloverleaf? I'm the nut who got out of his car, walked up to you and said, hey, you got a calf over here that's getting close to the road. I'm a little concerned. No, he's all right. That was me. How are you? Nice to meet you.
We didn't really meet that day, so.
No, I know. I mean, I have a farm on the next side of me and I tried to meet them and they go, my God, don't come in the yard, the dog will tear your farm. So,
You gotta listen to them.
I believe me, I do.
That's a llama.
I don't think you're gonna have any trouble here.
Okay.
So the bottom line is, everybody, if you have questions, are really kind of here. We get to help out farming. We all love the look of the rural of Columbia, the open space without having to purchase it. Yeah, I'm all for this. So, and $35,000. What we need to do is put a few more businesses on Route 6 to make up that $35,000, and we should be working hand in hand to do that. Farms on this side. Do something with Route 6 and then plaza and everything else, so. So Mark, what do we need to do here?
I'd have to work up ordinance that I'd bring back to the board of selectmen, and I could work with the committee. I have questions, make sure we do it right.
And we just need to have it done, I would assume, by October 1st, right?
Can I interject? Well, I think it's, because Mary has to do an initial inspection of all farms that would be applying for it, I'm not sure that, that could all happen before, it might have to wait until 2024 to actually go into effect. I don't know. I don't know how much time.
You want this?
I do want this. Yes, sir.
A drive or a round?
I just said,
We're sold, don't talk.
okay, got it, Done.
And I say we're sold, I'm sold. Anybody have, Chris, you got any objections, you got any reservations?
Just want to understand the math. So the total to the grand list hit is just under $1 million and it's split over 20 plus.
Yeah, do you want to see the spreadsheet? I have it with me. I have one for September, if you want to actually see.
They broke it down by potential farm that could
Yes.
apply
Yes.
for worst case.
It's a tax, to the tax rolls of $34,500. We'll have to find that to make it.
And that's at $100,000.
That's at the $100,000 cap, yes.
$100,000.
Yeah.
We can change this next year. So,
As the daughter of immigrants from Italy and Norway that were hungry during World War II, you betcha I like food security.
Thank you.
Bill, any questions?
I think it's a great idea.
You all set? Okay.
I was at the meeting when they.
Good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Oh, I have one more question.
Yes, sir.
You guys like get together in somebody's barn and just have a meeting about like crops and this and that?
What we're gonna trade now.
No, I understand. I don't have any time either, but I'd like to, I mean, if you have a gathering of the farmers in town. Honestly, I'd like to attend. I'd just like to hear what the hell's going on. I mean, I see Cloverleaf and I drive by. Morris Kaplan's place, it used to be a big dairy farm, and I look at that thing falling apart, it saddens me, and so, I'm all for this, and I might use somebody who use a board that's approval is pretty good when it comes to land and farming and stuff like that, so if you ever get together, all right, have an old fashioned hoedown, invite us. Just talk about, like, farming us to EDC, and like us.
Okay.
You want to hear what's going on on the farm day. Okay. Speaking of that, we got a dance tomorrow night, up at Rec Park, but go ahead.
I was all prepared to say all these things to try to convince you that this was a good thing, so.
I'm sorry, would you like to go ahead?
I'm Susan Mitchell, 448 Route 87, Cloverleaf Farm, and Josh Carnes, Ramble Creek Farm. We farm on the same property together. But yes, thank you very much for being so supportive of this.
It's nice to see young people getting involved with farming.
Thank God.
Hey.
Now we need like the 20 something, you know, yeah.
Well, my daughter is of Hens and Hearts. She has a Facebook page. She raises chickens, turkeys. Her son has severe allergies and stuff. So Hens and Hearts, look at it. It's all organic and birds, and they turned a place in Colchester into all these coops and everything else. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculously wonderful, yeah. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Set the town meeting authorized transfer.
That's not easy.
We don't need that.
We looked and there's enough funds left over from projects to transfer the Cleveland project. So we'll include that in the transfer.
There goes three farmers right there. Look at them.
Yeah.
Okay, so good. So we don't need that. We're good.
Right, it won't be a town meeting, I'll need.
Columbia Lake Dam Beach, we're all set there. Okay, appointments and resignation. Resignation of. So if you didn't know, Sue Epstein, turned in her resignation from the library director, and her last day was last week. And, you know, she's made a decision to move on, so we wish Sue well. Resignation of Joseph Napolitano from the Board of Education. This, I think, the Board of Education is an absolute tough job. Put it in good terms. So Joe was on it for a number of years, but he is at this point where he needs to move on, so he has resigned from the Board of Education. I hope the Republican Party.
We have one. We already have some. Hold later.
You can give me a letter for,
We have a meeting Thursday.
okay, and then if we could get it before next board. Meeting.
And Tom Courier is graciously just asked to, we decided to get the twist resolved.
He's been on for
We
10
just-
years.
I know,
We just-
that's reappoint.
We just, we keep missing his real.
Does he know? I move to reappoint Tom.
Forever.
I move to reappoint
Mrs.
Tom Courier to the Wyndham Region Transit District. Is our representative, is that it?
Yeah.
From 11/2021 to 11/2025. We wait on this?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All those in favor? Aye. And appointment of Greg Stryker to LMAC. I know Greg, he and his wife, you know them. I have asked that we appoint a couple of people
not living on the lake to the lake committee. So we have a little bit more of a diverse viewpoint. So I move to appoint Greg Stryker, the Lake Management Advisory Committee. And we have LMAX approval on this, right?
Yes, yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 5-0, thank you. Town administrator report.
Good news, we did receive the second half of the grant. We were awarded $52,865. It came from the Volkswagen, money taken from Volkswagen, they've been properly calculated in miles per gallon. It was a whole lawsuit. So, and that coupled with the previous Eversource grant, I've asked Titan Energy to pull together a proposal on the EV, because we did already submit a proposal of 6 EV units, which would get 12 heads in town for electrical charging with charge card would pay for it.
So would that mean that there wouldn't be any cost for the town?
No, there'd be some costs, and that's what we're working out right now. Titan Energy is working with our building official, our facilities director, and also our manager, and also looking at how the proposal was done to see, the main thing is how much of an upgrade do we need to do the electrical public works to get the EV charging unit that would possibly charge an electric bus.
Now, are these fast chargers or, the, whatever?
Medium.
These are
Mediums?
yeah.
They're
Yeah,
not,
they're not fast chargers, they're designed,
Those are like double the cost.
right,
yeah,
these
so
are the
those, would-
middle of the road.
how long would it take to charge a vehicle with these?
I would save that question for next week with,
They're gonna come, that's.
And I guess I have my other question is, do we not have to go out to bid on this?
yes, we have to go into bid.
The Titan knows we're going out to bid, right?
I'll make that crystal clear. And I've already talked to Chris on that.
Crystal
So
clear.
they may not get it.
Correct.
Well, Titan wouldn't do it anyway. It's, they would put the bid package out and look for subcontractors. Titan doesn't actually put in EV.
So they're
charging.
gonna be here next time, they're just.
Right.
Questions,
Okay.
how much they get used now.
Next.
Steve. Just wanted to tell you that our social coordinator, our senior center director, and the rec director have put together a combined intergenerational health and wellness day. They're all invited Monday, July 17th.
I've actually submitted the board of selectmen as our own Olympic team. Chris unfortunately hurt his elbow, so he's gonna be in the swimming events.
For pickleball, huh?
Maybe you could do cornhole without injury.
I don't even see that on there.
Is there yard
If there
games,
is corn,
Oh, there it is.
ring toss?
check,
So,
checkers.
Okay, I'm good at giant Jenga.
I just wanted you, all of you aware that's coming up, and
Is that a holiday that we have off from work?
No, I don't think so. I think I'll be doing,
So it's really for kids and,
seniors.
that's actually.
oh, it's not. For
I think
kids.
we're all in the senior category. Maybe Lisa's not.
Oh,
Anything else?
No, and then I just gave you a report just to see, show you everything that Katie has been involved with. As part of her monthly report she gives to me, and there's quite a bit that we partnered with a grant from CIRAC to really do a whole, what do you need to know about vaping? And that went out to every, you should have gotten this in your mailbox.
Yeah.
We had paid for that, and it was a lot of good information. So that's all. Katie for pulling that together, and that's all I have to say.
Correspondence, had a nice article in the Chronicle, Connor. 4th of July parade.
I sent them probably 15 pictures, that just that one.
Well,
We can get the whole page.
Judy was very prominently,
he called me.
yeah.
He called
I think that was going, Judy.
me. I'm easy to talk.
Did you notice I was in line this time as I passed you by?
Yes, Your arm is terrible. 3 kids started barking down the road, I don't understand. 3 kids started barking. Don't you? So, but I will tell you, I thought the parade was a very good parade this year.
It was a lot of fun.
I'm looking for more. I talked to Mark Darnowski, and I said, you know, over last year's parade, I thought it was there was an improvement, and he said it would have been bigger if people were not afraid of the rain. But you play an instrument or you have uniforms and stuff. A couple of them didn't show up.
Leather drums.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so hopefully we get some.
Or events, there was that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Normally go for range, you can't do anything with it. You know,
Yeah.
my brother-in-law's a bagpiper, it shuts him right down completely.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
We're not,
So that's okay. No transfers, we do have refunds. I make a motion, we approve refund of $2,478.22. That's a lot. One house, huh?
Yeah, the person who sold the house paid the taxes and the person who bought the house paid the tax.
Oh, that's.
That's how we roll it.
That's why.
For them to donate, I'd say it's temporary.
All those in favor? Okay. And approve pay bill. If it matches before I say anything. I move to approve the payment of bills totaling $568,114.47. Consisting of 22-23 emergency, regular. Small bit SBL, which is Saxonby Library grant payment number 104, credit card and paychecks.
What,
What?
there's we've opened 17,000, so walk path, ceiling service? This,
Where?
Is that the tennis one?
it's 0, I don't know, so take what page?
How much?
Page 1,000, no, 117,000,
Yeah, that's
like the third page.
that's the tennis court and pickleball, court.
okay.
And additional walking path between the two with the ping pong.
That came in under budget.
they put an epoxy flooring down.
It's,
Yes, they did.
That's awesome.
They're having trouble.
it's within, we have enough money.
That's not what I really am.
They hit the budget, we added a change order of a walkway in between the two. Because there was no way, it was an elevation change. I think it was an extra $3,000.
Right, yeah, they put the epoxy floor in and we're in negotiations with the contractor who did it. I think there's a few problems. with
It
it.
looks like there's a puddle. It shines. They might be able to pop it out and fix it. But you walk in thinking it's still wet.
And it's near the bedroom and stuff in the showers. So if you actually do have water on the floor, but you think it's not the puddle because it was then you
Gotcha.
can be less, we're having a little trouble.
We're looking at it.
But they usually hold up very well.
Yeah,
It's a nice choice in there.
there's a lot of big payments here.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more discussion on paying the bills? All those in favor? Audience of citizen? You can go. Yes, Ian.
Yeah, John, I want to appreciate, I would like to thank the board very, very much for being so receptive to the farm. Thank you. It's actually the third time this ordinance was approved by the state of Connecticut years ago, decades ago. And it's the third time that Conservation and Committee has brought it before. the board of selectmen. And, this is the first time that it's been approved. But so unanimously and with such enthusiasm. And that shows that this is a board that appreciates, the board character and also the economic business that we have.
I'm the guy pulled over taking pictures on Skyline.
I've done that too.
Oh, there's no trespassing sign.
Oh, what?
It's probably because Steve
Because of Steve.
was
No parking or whatever.
scribbling the heck.
It's
They
beautiful.
have both Democrat signs up every year, so
One side of the road does, the other side doesn't.
yeah. That's the right side, okay. Great, board member comments, and then we're gonna have to go into board member comments. All right, let's rock.
Hold on, let me, well, why don't you state the time you're going to.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to suspend the board of selectmen meeting and go into executive session at
8:25.
8:25.
And Jessica, I'm going to have to remove you from the meeting, I apologize. Thank you.
And you
And
Hold on.
we're coming out at 8:40,
No,
and
no action taken.
no action taken.
Okay.
Tomorrow, if the board of selectmen, if the people can be there, the fire department is doing thank yous at 6:30 PM for the grant we've received. Correct?
Yes, 6:30.
And those legislatures who voted for that or helped get it, I guess Mr. Tim Eckert and Senator Austin will be there.
Correct.
More than welcome to show up. And then, of course, there is the concert tomorrow night,
Right.
sponsored by the Board of Selectmen
So,
at 6:30 to 8:30.
Yeah.
But I'll be at the fire department from 6:30.
you're right, 6:30?
Yeah,
6:30 to 8.
so I went to the last one. It was fantastic. You were there. It was good, right?
Food truck was great.
The truck was great. It was, everybody behaved themselves. It was good. Very nice.
I'm hoping to go see Sound of Freedom in Colchester. It's
Yeah.
done on Thursday. And Thursday I got a meeting.
So make a motion, we adjourn. All those in favor?
8:42.
So.